So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to the School of Vedic Studies. Today is our session 5 with His Grace Basu Ghosh Prabhu. We are doing the synopsis on the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We have completed the synopsis up to the 11th chapter. We've got 8 more chapters to go. So we will begin from the 12th chapter today and possibly have 1 or 2 sessions more before we finish the synopsis to the first canto. So we welcome His Grace Basu Ghosh Prabhu, and without any further delay, I hand over the mic to His Grace Basu Ghosh Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So I'm also live on my Facebook page and YouTube. So I'll just remind the viewers there that this is an overview of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And today we begin with chapter 12 and 13 and 14. Wow. There is a lot to cover. Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. So I'm going to go from the notes today and not from the shlokas. Let's see if that's better. It'll be faster, I think. So Srimad Bhagavatam chapter 12, Adhyaya 12. I have the 6th verse as being important, where Mukunda Manasaha words are used in the shloka, that Yudhishthir, description of Yudhishthir, that he was uninterested in material wealth, but only interested in bhakti. Thereafter, in text 7 to 12, the birth of Parikshit and his observance, Pariksha, as a Hindi word that most people in India who know Hindi understand. He saw Lord Vishnu in the womb of his mother, and he was protected by Vishnu from the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. So that is described in verses 7 through 12. Then verse 16, the Brahmanas praise Parikshit's life and his qualities. But to know the details, we have to read the shlokas. Shloka 17, Parikshit got the name Vishnu Rata because he was protected by Vishnu. Let me read that. That's an important verse. I feel that's an important verse. So I'm going to go to the verse. That was number 17. Tasman namna Vishnurata iti loke bhavishyati nasandeho mahabhagavato mahan. So he will get the name Vishnu Rata, and he will be known as a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So then Yudhishthir inquired from the Brahmanas about the future of Parikshit in 18. 19 Brahmanas respond that he will be a dharmagya and he'll rule the kingdom like Lord Ramachandra. They make predictions based on astronomy, the time of his birth. And then they also say, the Brahmanas say, Parikshit will be a Dana Vira. He'll be famous for his charitable disposition. 21, that's in 20. 21 says he will be a heroic warrior like his grandfather Arjuna. 22, he will be as strong as a lion. And 23, Parikshit is compared to famous rajas like Yudhishthir, Ranti Deva, Yayati, Bali Maharaj, and Prahlad. And he's also compared to Lord Shiva, who we can't say he's a great Raja, but he's, the personality of God. He's a form of Vishnu. 28, Parikshit will be a great renunciate. So the entire life and activities of Parikshit are described. And 32, Yudhishthir obtained wealth after the battle of Kurukshetra. Yudhishthir didn't have wealth, so he needed wealth in order to perform Ashwamedha Yagnas. So he performed 3 Ashwamedha Yagnas, and at that time, Lord Krishna remained in Hastinapur after the battle of Kurukshetra for some months. So that's a quick overview of chapter 12, and we're doing good on the time this way. If you've kept notes or if you have the chapter open, well, you can ask questions at the end. So we have 20 more minutes for 2 chapters. So the 13th chapter, Dhritarashtra quits home. I did a little more preparation today, to be very honest. Although, by being honest, I'm exposing myself for not having done enough preparation the other days. So in verses 1 through 7, it's described that Vidura is the brother of Dhritarashtra from the same father, but his mother was a Dasi Putra. So he was considered a Shudra. But he was the chief advisor of Dhritarashtra. So before the battle of Kurukshetra, Vidura had left Hastinapur. And during that period, he met Maitreya Rishi. These things are described in verses 1 through 7. And he inquired from Maitreya Rishi about self-realization. Then he returned to Hastinapur after the Pandavas were victorious, but not immediately. It took some time. But when he returned, Yudhishthir spoke to Vidura and asked him to bless him, as he was his uncle. So then Yudhishthir recited that in the 10th verse of 13, this is famous, one of the famous verses of Bhagavatam that Prabhupada liked to quote now and then. And it's like this: Bhavad vidha bhagavatas tirtha bhuta swayam vibho tirthi kurvanti tirtani swantastena gadabhrita. So translation by Prabhupada. Somebody has their mic on. So there was okay. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. So high praise of Vidura by Yudhishthir, and that praise is used for any great soul, any Mahatma, any great devotee. It inspires this type of comparison. Wherever a great devotee goes, he spreads punya and Krishna bhakti. And so, he purifies that place wherever he goes. So you can note this, 1:13:10. Now in 11 through 14, in the same adhyaya, same chapter, Vidura heard about, when he was traveling, he got the news that the Yadus had a fratricidal war at Prabhas, which is in Saurashtra, today Gujarat, on the bank of the ocean, where the Saraswati River used to meet the ocean. And that ocean, the old name is Sindhu Sagara, because the Sindhu River comes into that ocean. So Saraswati also used to come into the Sindhu Sagara, but dried up 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. So Vidura did not tell this to Yudhishthir. This news he did not give, and Yudhishthir had no idea that this happened. But Vidura didn't want to agitate his mind. So in text 15, it says that in fact, Vidura was an avatar of Yamaraj, but he was cursed to be a Shudra. And in a sense, he wasn't a Shudra because a Kshatriya could marry he wasn't, and the mother wasn't married. Dasi Putra, the servants were not of the kings. Some kings had, sexual relations with their servants, Rajas, and they were not married to them, but they bore children, and those children were considered Shudras, even though their fathers were Kshatriyas. So Vidura was cursed. Yamaraj was cursed to be a Shudra by Mandaka Rishi. I can't remember his name, something like that. And so he was born as Vidura. And it mentions in number 15, Shloka 15, that Aryama is the chief of the Purvajas. In this particular, I think it's a day of Brahma, or it could be just in the Manvantara. But Aryama became Yamaraj, while Yamaraj was incarnated as Vidura. From 18 to 28 in this Adhyaya, Vidura counsels Dhritarashtra to go to the forest and give up his material attachments. So it's interesting how he condemns, materialism. And quietly, without telling Yudhishthir and the Pandavas who were ruling the kingdom after the battle of Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura, all three left to the Himalayas and to leave their bodies at the end of their lives. Vanaprastha ashram, according to the Vedic concept, sannyas ashram is only for Brahmanas. Vanaprastha ashram is for Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. And for Vaishyas and Shudras, there's only, for Vaishyas, there's a Brahmachari ashram for studying Vedas. But then there's Grihastha ashram, and there's no Vanaprastha or sannyas necessary for Vaishyas. But for Shudras, there's only Grihastha ashram. There's no Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya means Vedadhyayanam, studying Vedas. So verses 31 through 37 describes Yudhishthir found Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura missing from the palace. And he inquires from Sanjaya, Dhritarashtra's, Sarathi and servant. Sanjaya was not informed, and so he also lamented the separation of Dhritarashtra. He was very attached. As a humble servant, Shudra, the chariot drivers were considered Shudras, Sutas, and they were very humble, and they knew that they had a master that they had to serve, and they became very attached to that service. In text 38, suddenly Narada appears in the court of Yudhishthir. This is after Dhritarashtra and Gandhari have left. And so verse number 40 is another famous verse. Karnadhara ivapare Bhagavan Paradarshakaha Atha Babhashe Bhagavan Narado Muni Sattamaha. Yudhishthir praises Narada and tells him, Karnadharaha, you are like a captain of a ship in a great ocean, and you can direct us to our destination. Thus addressed, the godly personality, Devarshi Narada, greatest of the philosopher devotees, began to instruct Yudhishthir. And from 41 to 48, Narada instructs Yudhishthir in spiritual knowledge and renunciation. So although Yudhishthir was a great king, at the end of his life, the king should also renounce all of his material attachments, which is not easy. But death is certain. So why, remain attached to the post and to all the opulences? So 49 and 50, Narada describes that Lord Krishna has come in the form of time to destroy the demons. And he instructed Yudhishthira and the Pandavas that when you can remain here as long as Krishna is on the planet, but when he goes, you should go with him. And shlokas 51 to 58 describes the travel of Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura to the Himalayas. Narada, because Narada is like a Trikalagya. He knows past, present, and future. He knew that they were in the Himalayas and they were performing austerities, getting ready to leave their bodies, and were associating with rishis at a place called Sapta, excuse me, I'm going to look it up because it's an important, why? Give me a second here. I couldn't memorize that, but Saptasrota, where the Ganga was divided into 7 branches in the Himalayas for the satisfaction of 7 great rishis. And Dhritarashtra is now there, engaged in beginning Ashtanga Yoga by bathing 3 times daily in the morning, noon, and evening. That's in 53. And performing Agnihotra, sacrificed with fire, and drinking only water. Dhritarashtra had given up food and was performing austerities to control the mind and senses and to give up his body. And then Narada departs and Yudhishthira accepts his instructions. So that was the synopsis of chapter 13. And then chapter 14 is entitled The Disappearance of Lord Krishna, but there's no description of the disappearance of Krishna in this chapter 14. The first to 5th shlokas describes Arjuna going to Dwarka and Yudhishthira observing the bad omens. I think it's a Shakuna, right? Apa Shakun in Hindi. Shakun. Shakuna in Sanskrit, I'm not sure actually. Let me look up the exact words in the shlokas so I can give it to you. Shribihi is a word used for the auspicious signs, but the inauspicious signs, I'm not sure what word is used for inauspicious signs. Me Samskrita bhashayam. It's in the 2nd verse, and I'm looking ahead. Vyatita katichin masas tada nayat tatorjunaha tadarsha ghora rupani nimittani kurudvaha. Nimittas is the word used here. The various causes which were ghora rupani, very horrible, fearful. So those things are described right up from the 1st verse till the 21st verse. And on the 22nd verse, in the 22nd verse, the description of Arjuna returning to Hastinapur is given. And 23 and 24, Yudhishthira observes that Arjuna is completely dejected. And from 25 to 44, Yudhishthira inquires from Arjuna about the state of affairs at Dwarka, because Arjuna had gone away to Dwarka. And at the end, he guesses, as per the mood of Arjuna, that Lord Krishna has already left this world. Wow. I'm like 6 minutes, more than 6 minutes in time, under the time limit here.
Absolutely.
But I think I'll end. These are, a general overview of the 3 chapters, 3 adhyayas. So we
So
could
you could
begin
give some takeaways from the general overview, because we still have time.
takeaways.
What would be
Means,
the takeaway to meditate on?
No, it's a history that's being narrated. I'm gonna take off my headphones now because this discussion has to be heard by the viewers on my Facebook page and YouTube. So takeaways is being asked. What are the takeaways from this chapter? Well, we understand that this is the history. The Puranas are histories. And this is the history of the Pandavas, the history of Parikshit, who was the grandson of Arjuna, right? And then the Bhagavatam was spoken to Parikshit when he was cursed by the Brahmin boy to leave his body within a week. So, that's one takeaway from that chapter, the life of Parikshit.
Right.
Then the second chapter, that's chapter 12. Chapter 13 is the situation at Hastinapur in relation with the immediate family of the Pandavas, including the head of the Kauravas, Dhritarashtra, after the victory of the Pandavas in the Kurukshetra war. And then Lord Krishna leaving the world, the stage is set for that news to be displayed, to be given to the Pandavas by Arjuna in chapter 14, but he doesn't actually reveal it in chapter 14. But it's inferred by Yudhishthir, but from the mood of Arjuna after he returned, after being gone for some months to Dwarka. Now in Dwarka, that was Krishna's place, and Arjuna means his wife is Subhadra. So he's intimately attached to Dwarka because of his marital relation and out of devotion, because they were all great devotees, great bhaktas of Lord Krishna, and that was Lord Krishna's place.
Right. So, there are, Vidura comes and kind of, drags Dhritarashtra out of the palace. And
Not
on the other hand,
he dragged
in
him
the
out.
sense, he kind of urges him.
Yeah, he convinces him.
He convinces him, he urges him.
Take to the path of renunciation and self-realization, and
That's
he
right.
he was able to accomplish that.
Yeah. And on the other hand, Naradji comes and also gives similar instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj to leave. Now, there's a bit of a kind of, or rather distinction, that in the case of Dhritarashtra, there was some endurance on the part of Vidura. And in the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, Naradji didn't have to endure. Now, is it because the Pandavas were...
No, you have to be more clear. What is this endurance?
So I'm saying Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he was asked to renounce also and leave, from the descriptions we understand that it was more smooth, as opposed to, because they were practicing devotees. And in the case of Dhritarashtra, there was an endurance on the part of Vidura. From the descriptions, that's what we understand. Why is that difference?
Endurance means you have to explain what you mean by endurance.
Okay.
Toleration?
That means, Vidur had to really work on Yudhishthira Maharaj and explain to him that you need to renounce.
Correct.
But from the description, that in the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, it wasn't so. It was like, yes, it's accepted. And there comes a time when I have to leave the opulence, as you also said, that death is
I
imminent.
think the word you were searching for is obstinance, not endurance.
Yeah, obstinance, yes.
Obstinance.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dhritarashtra was more materially attached than Yudhishthira. But in the ultimate analysis, both of them were great souls who actually did, Dhritarashtra had many faults. And his greatest fault was his affection for Duryodhana. So, if Dhritarashtra could overcome his faults, and he always knew that Krishna was, Vishnu, still he was attached. But at the end, he was able to give up that attachment. So he's praised for that in the Bhagavatam.
Right, okay. So any other questions do we have from
The participants?
There is one question from Brajnath Prabhu.
In the chat box.
Yeah, in the chat box, yes. What is the suitable process for leaving the body during this period? Can you enlighten on this, Prabhu?
This period means
Brajnath Prabhu, clarify that?
Current Kali Yuga period which is going on.
the time that we live in, you mean?
Yeah, exactly, Prabhu.
It's the same. What's the difference? There's a quote from Prabhupada that there is no difference between Satya Yuga and today. I can dig that out actually, because a section of our God brothers are saying that, like the instructions of, or the story of Dhruva was in the past. And so Prabhupada's instructions in the purports to the story of Dhruva applied to a remote time in the past. In fact, in Ahmedabad in November 2019, we had a discussion between a representative of the North American leadership and the Indian leaders. And one of the things he said was that, well, it was all in the remote past, it doesn't apply now. But Prabhupada's purports were written for people today. The law books for the next 10,000 years. We say that, but when there's something very difficult, then we try and get out of it and make an excuse. Well, that was for the remote past. That's the wrong way to look at it. The thing is that it was difficult for, just like, Dhritarashtra was obstinate. He was attached to the opulences of the palace, and it's natural. We're attached to sleeping in a soft bed. How many of us sleep on the floor? When I joined ISKCON back in 1973, seems like yesterday, but it's 48 years ago, we slept on the floor. Later on, we slept on the floor. I know some of ISKCON's big sannyasis sleep on the floor. Not many of them, but I'm thinking of one in particular who's always been like that. He was always a brahmachari, he was never a householder. So the householders are attached to sense gratification. Kashi puhu, soft pillow. Hiranya, gold. Kashi puhu, soft pillow. Grihastha ashram means material comforts. And Dhritarashtra and Gandhari were instructed by Vidura to leave it all and go to the forest and suffer. And one of the things I didn't mention, that when he was performing austerities, Dhritarashtra stopped eating and only drank water. And so Narada says that he will leave his body in 5 days. I mean, if you don't drink water, you can't live for too long. If you drink water, the body can go on for a month or two. But without, of course, Dhritarashtra was drinking water, but still he was preparing to leave his body. in an old age. So, you know, people had such a faith. There was no, the ashramas were there. Now the ashrama will charge you money to stay. That wasn't the case in the past. Ashrama meant a place for people to come and take shelter at the end of their lives, to prepare to leave this body. So it's an instruction for all of us to do. But, you know, how many of us are going to do it? Very few. I mean, at least people go to Vrindavan. Prabhupada went to Vrindavan and spent his last days. And a number of devotees come to Vrindavan to leave their bodies, or they go to Banaras. Banaras is called Avimukta Kshetra in the Matsya Purana. And there's lots of people that go there to leave their body. You know, there was a devotee in our temple, and poor guy, of course, he left our temple some years ago, but we were in touch with him. He settled in Kutch, in Bhuj. He was serving the ISKCON project there, and his mother expired in Uttar Pradesh. He was from Jaunpur, and he went to Jaunpur. This is last year. He got the COVID fever, and they took him to Banaras in the hospital. We spoke to him once or twice. He was on oxygen and he expired. At least he expired in Banaras. You know, you get, according to the Matsya Purana, if you leave your body in Banaras, you get moksha. But what moksha is that? It may be Sayujya Mukti. But because he was a devotee, then we feel he would have gotten, you know, Salokya, Sarupya, Sarshti, or Samipya moksha. And we feel that if you leave your body in Mayapur or Vrindavan, you enter Lord Krishna's and or Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's eternal pastimes. It's faith that we have based on Bhagavatam and the Puranas. And the Upanishads talk about moksha, but not, the information is not given like it's given in the Puranas. Any other question?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you.
It's a deep subject. I mean, you know, small answer. In a few minutes, what can I do?
Any further questions? Any comments?
It's good to send the questions in the chat box. Thank you for
Yes.
doing that.
Yeah.
Actually, we should have that system for the people who are participating on Zoom. Actually, the internet people, there is a way. Right now, it's not, nothing is coming through. I don't know. It's live stream, but no questions. I've seen in the past, people send me questions over on, I'm using Restream.
Right.
But somehow or other, there are no questions coming in. I don't know if this is a convenient time for people.
Possible. It may not be in, let's say, in the part.
I don't know. I actually wanted to, I haven't been checking on my Facebook page
Okay.
to see
Possibly there are questions later on. Also, people could be, you know, devotees could be.
I have to check it up.
Yeah.
Check it up. So I'm ending the
stream.
stream.
So thank you very much, Prabhu, for another wonderful session. And we'll have then tomorrow. Do you think we'll be able to finish? I don't think so. We'll be able to finish 5 chapters tomorrow. So let's keep it for Friday and Saturday, which is to your Friday night and our Saturday morning. So dear devotees, we will have 2 more sessions to complete the first canto synopsis. So tomorrow, Friday, as well as on Saturday, we'll meet again with His Grace Basu Ghosh Prabhu. His Grace Basu Ghosh Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpataru
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.